Captain Selene Quell had a knack for making bad decisions look like good ones. Take the time she decided to terraform Venus, for instance. Not the kind of place you pick for a relaxing stroll, unless you fancy a sauna that could melt titanium. Well, she said, wiping the sweat from her forehead, welcome to the hellhole of the solar system. Home sweet home, huh? Her voice crackled over the comms, met with a chorus of groans from the rest of the team. Her crew was a motley bunch, each more cynical and world-weary than the last. First, there was Grayson Gray Tibb, the engineer who swore more than he breathed. Why do we always end up in the armpit of the universe, Cap? He grumbled, adjusting his helmet. Couldn't they find a nice asteroid somewhere? Then there was Dr. Lena Wu, the biologist with the cheery disposition of a funeral director. I mean, look on the bright side, she said, eyes darting to the bubbling seas of sulfuric acid. At least it's not raining. Yet, and let's not forget Zero, the AI who ran the ship, as reliable as a used car salesman with a guilty conscience. I must protest, Captain, Zero's voice chimed through their earpieces, smug as ever. The data clearly stated Venus is inhospitable. Inhospitable, Selene muttered, pushing forward through the alien terrain. That's a lovely understatement, Zero. Next thing you'll tell me is that space is big. The mission was straightforward enough, make Venus less Venus. Easier said than done when your terraforming equipment had a tendency to break down faster than a politician's promises. The air was thick with sulfur, the heat oppressive, but Selene had a job to do, and she wasn't about to let a little thing like certain death ruin her day. As they trudged across the cracked surface, Gray caught sight of something glinting in the distance. Hey, Cap, he called out, pointing. What's that? Some alien trash. Selene squinted at the odd structure emerging from the haze. It was huge, ancient-looking, and definitely not on the itinerary. That's either a bonus paycheck or a bureaucratic headache, she said, marching toward it. The closer they got, the more it looked like a relic from some forgotten civilization, half buried in the scorched ground. Well, that ain't a sandcastle, Lena quipped, examining the alien symbols etched into its surface. Zero, ever the killjoy, had already started analyzing. Unknown origin detected. Possible significance to Earth's history. Significance to Earth's history, Gray echoed, his skepticism as thick as the sulfur clouds. If this is some ancient alien tech, I bet it runs better than our engines. Selene tapped her chin, contemplating their next move. All right, team, let's poke the bear. Poke the bear? Lena shook her head. Isn't that how people wind up in horror stories? We're already in one, Selene replied, bracing herself as she reached for her tools. Might as well get a good ending. A few sparks, some grumbling, and a lot of swearing later, the artifact began to hum, like someone had flipped the switch on a very angry microwave. I think it's waking up, Lena said, stepping back. Or it's about to explode, Gray added helpfully. Selene was too busy trying not to flinch as the thing lit up with an eerie, otherworldly glow. Zero, any ideas, suggestions? Evacuate the premises immediately or prepare for unusual phenomena, Zero replied, which was its way of saying run or die. Before anyone could opt for the evacuation plan, a voice boomed from the relic, speaking a language that was half static, half gibberish. That's not ominous at all, Selene said dryly. Maybe it's inviting us to a tea party, Gray snorted. Then came the light, a blinding flash that knocked them all off their feet. In the aftermath, silence fell, a heavy, expectant silence. Everyone in one piece, Selene asked, her voice shaky. Define one piece, Lena replied, picking herself up from the dust. Gray was still sprawled on the ground, dazed but intact. Holy hell, what was that? Your guess is as good as mine, Selene said, helping him up. Welcome to first contact with a toaster from another galaxy. Before they could regroup, Zero interrupted. Captain, detecting multiple life signs approaching. Selene's mood sired faster than milk in a microwave. Great, just what we need. The Lithari arrived in dramatic fashion, emerging from the swirling Venusian mist like alien divas at a cosmic gala. They were tall, ethereal, with skin that shimmered like stardust and eyes that glowed with the intensity of 1,000 suns, or maybe just 2. Well, this day just keeps getting better, Gray muttered. The tallest of the Lithari stepped forward, its voice a melodic rumble. Humans, it said, like a curse or a bad joke. You've activated the relic. Yes, sorry about that, Selene replied, not bothering to hide her annoyance. Didn't see your name on it. The Lithari leader's expression was inscrutable, like someone who'd just bitten into a lemon. That artifact is of great power, tied to your planet's past. Lena chuckled under her breath. Guess we're more interesting than we thought. What do you want with it? Selene asked, crossing her arms. To prevent it from falling into reckless hands, the alien replied, casting a disdainful look at the crew. Gray snorted. Reckless, us, never, Selene sighed. Look, we've got a job to do here, and playing keep-away with alien doohickeys isn't part of it. The Lithari exchanged glances, a silent conversation passing between them. We offer trade, the leader suggested, its tone smooth as oil. Information for cooperation. Celine hesitated. Information about what? Your history, it said, with a hint of intrigue. Lena raised an eyebrow. Our history's not exactly a page-turner, you know. On the contrary, the Lithari replied. It's more crucial than you might believe. Celine weighed her options, mind racing. All right, we'll play, but this better be worth it. The alien nodded, satisfaction flickering across its features. Follow us and you shall see. As they moved, Celine couldn't shake the feeling they'd just stepped into something much bigger than a simple terraform mission. The relic loomed behind them, silent and foreboding, while the Lithari led them through the swirling mists. Nice to know our vacation just got more exciting, Gray said, trying to lighten the mood. Lena shrugged. Could be worse. Could be raining acid right now. Celine chuckled, despite herself. Just another day in paradise. They journeyed through the alien landscape, the Lithari guiding them with an ease that spoke of familiarity. They moved with the kind of grace humans could only wish for and rarely achieved unless on a dance floor after 3 shots of whiskey. So, Gray said, trying to make small talk as they walked, do you Lithari come here often? The leader cast him a sideways glance. We prefer less volatile climbs, Gray grinned. We call that good taste. Their destination turned out to be an underground chamber, hidden beneath layers of rock and secrecy. The walls were lined with carvings, telling stories in a language none of them understood. Welcome to the Library of the Forgotten, the Lithari announced, gesturing grandly. Celine frowned. Looks like my grand's attic. Lena tapped one of the carvings. These symbols, they're like the ones on the relic. Correct, the Lithari leader confirmed. They tell of a time when your kind was not alone, and that relic has something to do with it, Celine asked, skepticism coloring her tone. It is a key, the alien said, to memories long buried. Gray scratched his head. I knew I should have brought a history major instead of a wrench. Celine studied the carvings, her mind a whirl of possibilities. So this key, what happens if we turn the lock? The Lithari's eyes gleamed with something like anticipation. Everything changes. Everything, Lena echoed, crossing her arms. Define everything, your world. Your place in the cosmos, the alien replied. The balance of power, Gray chuckled, shaking his head. Well, no pressure then. Celine glanced at her crew, the weight of the decision settling on her shoulders. Looks like we're in deep space without a map, folks. What's new? Gray replied. We're experts at winging it, Celine smirked. Then let's see what kind of trouble we can stir up. As they delved deeper into the chamber, the tension hung over them like a storm cloud. They were on the brink of something monumental, a discovery that could reshape everything they knew. Captain, Zero's voice crackled through the silence. Incoming transmission from Earth. What now? Celine muttered, signaling for the message. The voice that came through was urgent, crackling with static. Captain Quell, this is command. We've detected unusual activity in your sector. Are you aware of the Lithari presence? Celine chuckled humorlessly. Oh, we're aware. Proceed with caution, command advised. We don't know their intentions. Celine glanced at the Lithari, who watched her with unreadable expressions. Don't worry, she said into the comms. We're just having a friendly chat about ancient history. Stay alert, command persisted before the transmission cut out. Lena sighed. Friendly chat, huh? Celine shrugged. As friendly as it gets when you're discussing cosmic secrets with aliens. Gray looked at the Lithari. So, what's the plan now? The leader nodded toward the relic. We unlock the past. With a sense of purpose, they returned to the surface, the relic waiting like a sleeping giant. The Lithari began a series of intricate gestures, the air shimmering with otherworldly energy. Celine watched, her heart pounding in her chest. This was it, the moment when everything could change. She just hoped it wouldn't involve getting vaporized. As the relic began to glow once more, the ground trembled beneath their feet. Here we go, Gray muttered, bracing himself. The air crackled with electricity, the relic's power building to a crescendo. Now, the Lithari leader instructed, see the truth. Celine held her breath, the world around her fading into a whirlwind of light and sound. She had no idea what they'd unleashed, but she was damn well going to find out. One way or another, and as the relic's power enveloped them, she realized that the universe had just become a whole lot more interesting. As the bright light from the relic faded, Celine blinked away, the stars dancing in front of her eyes. When the universe decided to stop doing its best disco ball impression, she realized the Lithari were now staring at the artifact like it was the last piece of cake at a Weight Watchers meeting. All right, shiny alien friends, what's with the googly eyes? Celine asked, dusting off her jacket. You look like my cat when I opened a can of tuna. The Lithari leader's expression was as readable as a tax form. This artifact holds stories from your world, hidden truths entwined with fiction. We talking Shakespeare or the Brothers Grimm's uncut edition? Gray quipped as he gave the artifact a side-eye, half expecting it to grow legs and start dancing. Dr. Lena Wu, her face set to its usual I'm only here for the science expression, sighed with the weight of someone already imagining the paperwork. I swear if this thing starts reciting Hamlet, I'm out. Think more mythos, the Lithari leader replied, apparently forgetting that humans had a knack for turning mythology into billion-blockbuster movie franchises. Celine folded her arms, skepticism etched all over her face. So you're saying Earth's bedtime stories are ancient alien secrets? I knew there was something off about Goldilocks and the three bears. The Lithari leader nodded, which in alien body language was somewhere between a shrug and an eye roll. Your stories are echoes of a forgotten past, and the artifact is the key to unlocking them. Great, Gray mumbled. We've got a galactic gossip column on our hands. Just then, Zero's voice crackled into Celine's ear. Captain, incoming communication. It's Rook and Dr. Mina. They request a status update. Celine groaned, as if she needed a reminder that her day could indeed get busier. Patch them through, Zero. Let's see if the universe has any more delightful surprises. The holographic image of Rook, the tech specialist with an eternal smirk, flickered to life beside Dr. Mina, who looked like she'd rather be dissecting a corpse than dealing with another alien mystery. Hey Cap, we picked up some weird readings from the artifact. You playing with intergalactic fire again? Rook asked, his voice crackling with mischief. Just a cozy chat with our new Lithari friends about how our nursery rhymes are actually alien documentaries, Celine replied, casting a glance at the Lithari, who were now exchanging what she assumed were concerned looks. Or maybe they were just annoyed at being stuck with humans. Doctor. Mina's voice was dry as a Martian desert. Please tell me you didn't promise them a guest spot on Ancient Aliens. I'm negotiating, Celine said with a mock sincerity that even a used car dealer would envy. Might have to throw in a few signed headshots. The Lithari leader, apparently bored with human quips, looked at Celine with a seriousness that could cut steel. We need the artifact to prevent misuse of these stores' power. Celine raised an eyebrow, her patience as thin as the ice on a hot Venusian day. And by misuse you mean, imagine your myths with the power to rewrite reality, the leader explained as if discussing the weather, a rather dreary forecast of doom and gloom. Great, Gray said. Next thing you know, someone's gonna summon Excalibur and poke an eye out. Rook chimed in. Or we get a real-life big bad wolf and the interplanetary Red Riding Hood Brigade. Celine rubbed her temples. If she'd known that leading a terraforming mission would involve playing diplomat to aliens with a penchant for dramatic speeches, she might have taken that gig on Europa instead. All right, let's say we help you. What's in it for us besides a front-row seat to when myths attack? The Lithari exchanged another round of inscrutable glances. Knowledge and protection. The artifact's power can be dangerous. And you're the good guys here, right? Lena snorted, sarcasm practically dripping from her words. The leader's response was as flat as Venusian terrain. We aim to preserve balance. Well, that's reassuring, Gray said. A bunch of space elves playing referee with our bedtime stories. Celine turned to her crew, weighing her options. All right, folks, we have a choice. Hand over the cosmic storybook and hope we don't end up as page 1 or find a way to secure it ourselves. Doctor. Mina, always the voice of reason, or at least the closest approximation on this crew, sighed. We should consider the implications. If they're telling the truth, this could be bigger than just us. Or it could be a load of cosmic crap, Rook added, shrugging. Hard to tell without poking it. Zero interrupted, because why not pile on the fun? Captain, if I may suggest, collaborative study with the Lithari could yield safer outcomes. All right, Celine waved her hand dismissively. We'll work with them, but on our terms. Last thing I want is Earth's history rewritten by someone who thinks glitter is a suitable camouflage. The Lithari leader nodded, seemingly unoffended by the glitter remark. Very well. We shall guide you. As the team and their alien companions ventured further into the depths of the chamber, Celine couldn't shake the feeling that they were teetering on the edge of a cliff, and the drop was a long way down. But then again, what was life without a little risk? Probably safer, definitely less interesting, and utterly devoid of sarcastic banter with aliens. Hey, Gray said, glancing around the eerie cavern walls, you think they've got a place to get a drink around here? Or does the cosmic library only serve knowledge on tap? Celine chuckled, despite the looming threat of mythological mayhem. Probably just the usual selection. Water, knowledge, and existential dread. Doctor. Mina, ever the realist, added, I'll take mine with a side of sanity, please. As the shadows deepened around them and the weight of the artifact's secrets pressed closer, Celine steeled herself for whatever bizarre adventure lay ahead. Whether they'd end up heroes or cautionary tales was anyone's guess, but one thing was certain. She wasn't about to let some space fairy tale write her out of the story. Not without a fight and some damn good punchlines. The artifact hummed quietly in the cavern's center, like a cat purring before it scratches your face off. Celine Quell stared at it, wondering if she'd made a career out of making questionable decisions or if it was just a hobby that got out of hand. All right, folks, she said, dragging her eyes from the relic to her motley crew. We've got an alien bedtime storybook that's apparently rewriting reality, and he volunteers to read it a little closer. Gray threw his hands up. Don't look at me. Last time I tried reading something ancient, I ended up with a mild case of possession. Think I'll pass on the Gods and Monsters edition. Smart choice, Dr. Lena Wu said, flipping through data on her handheld. I'm more concerned about what's actually happening. Those unpredictable phenomena aren't going to document themselves. Zero, ever the electronic ghost with a bad sense of timing, chimed into Celine's earpiece. Captain, Venusian weather patterns are experiencing anomalous shifts. Suggest evacuation of non-essential personnel. Celine sighed. When was the last time we had anything non-essential on this rock? Venus doesn't do half measures. Rook's holographic form flickered beside Dr. Mina, who was still glaring at the artifact like it owed her money. Anyone else feel like we're living in the prequel to a very bad horror film? Rook asked, smirking. Minus the gratuitous jump scares. Not yet, Mina replied dryly. But give it time. The Lithari leader, having the patience of a saint or a really good therapist, remained focused on the artifact. The stories manifest as energy, altering your world. We must contain them before balance is lost. Balance, right? Gray muttered, shaking his head. Because when I think of balance, I think of bedtime stories coming to life and wrecking my day. Celine took a deep breath, the kind that screamed I'm in over my head, but damn if I'll admit it out loud. All right, we need options. Something tells me Venus isn't going to wait for us to find a solution over afternoon tea. Maybe we should disable it, Lena suggested, her voice carrying the weight of what the hell are we even doing here. See if we can't shut it down before it reads us the next chapter. The Lithari leader frowned, a universal gesture that needed no translation. Disabling it may cause further instability. Its stories are part of your world now. Oh good, Gray said, sarcasm dripping like an overfilled coffee mug. So we can't turn it off and leaving it on is a ticking time bomb. How's that for choices? Well, you know what they say, Celine replied, half to herself. If you're handed a cosmic grenade, just make sure you're not the one holding it when it goes off, Doctor. Mina stepped forward, examining a series of panels on the artifact. Maybe we can figure out a way to predict these manifestations. If they're tied to specific stories, there could be a pattern. Patterns, Rook mused, rubbing his chin like a villain plotting world domination. I love patterns, especially the ones that don't end with us getting eaten by a dragon or something. Dragons, Zero interjected helpfully. Currently low probability, but not impossible. Celine rolled her eyes. Thanks, Zero. Always nice to know the universe has a sense of humor. Just then the ground trembled slightly, not enough to send them sprawling, but enough to remind everyone that Venus was not a forgiving place. Seems our time's running shorter than a politician's promise, Gray noted, eyes darting nervously. Let's focus on understanding what we're dealing with, Celine said, trying to inject some authority into her voice. If these are manifestations, they have boundaries. We need to find those boundaries. Lena nodded. I'll start correlating the energy patterns with Earth's historical and fictional records. Maybe we can get ahead of whatever's brewing. Rook glanced at the artifact with a mixture of reverence and suspicion. Guess we're in for a long night of story time. As they worked, Celine pondered the logistics of keeping a crew motivated while balancing the apocalypse. But those thoughts were swiftly replaced by the more pressing concern that they might be sabotaged from within. She couldn't shake the feeling that not everyone in the team was fully on board with their current plan, or maybe any plan that didn't involve running as far away from Venus as possible. She called a silent meeting with Gray, Lena, and Zero to address her concerns. They gathered in a makeshift corner of the cavern, where the echo wasn't too bad and the artifact's glow was slightly less blinding. All right, she started, keeping her voice low. Who here thinks we're about to eat it because someone on our side is playing traitor? Gray didn't hesitate. You mean besides the aliens? Always thought this was one step shy of a setup. Could be internal, Lena noted, her face a mask of calculating caution. Someone here might have their own idea of what this artifact should be used for. Zero, ever the bearer of bad news, had already compiled a list of suspects with disturbing efficiency. 3 crew members have not reported in since the anomaly began. Their last known locations were near the terraforming equipment. Sabotage, Celine asked, her gut already knowing the answer. Probability suggests yes, Zero replied, because the universe seemed to love understatements. Celine pinched the bridge of her nose, a universal sign of why me. All right, we need to get ahead of this. Secure the equipment, get eyes on those missing crew members, and keep this thing from turning Venus into a carnival of chaos. Like it isn't already, Gray quipped, but his face was set to something close to determined. We need to be ready for anything, Celine said, and the grim determination in her voice demanded no argument, and I mean anything. Because if things are about to get weird, they'll get weird fast. Back in the main chamber, the Lithari observed their hurried discussions with an expression that might have been concern or just mild indigestion. Selene wasn't sure which and didn't have time to care. "We've got some internal issues," she informed the leader, because conflicts of interest apparently didn't exclude aliens from their daily itinerary. "We can assist in securing the artifact," the leader offered, their words carefully measured, but carrying the weight of someone who understood the stakes. "Thanks," Selene replied, "but maybe focus on keeping that thing from narrating our doom." As Selene and her team scrambled to get their proverbial ducks in a row, assuming the ducks weren't secretly plotting against them, she couldn't help but feel the creeping dread that this situation was spiraling out of control faster than a politician's promise during campaign season. "Just another day in paradise," Gray muttered as they moved to secure the terraforming gear. If paradise was a sulfuric hellhole with a penchant for mythological disasters, the crew split up, each one tasked with stabilizing a system or tracking down a missing crew member. As they worked, Selene could feel the weight of the unknown pressing down on them. The artifact pulsed ominously in the background, like a heart monitor for a patient on the brink of flatlining. With each passing minute, the air seemed thicker, the tension almost tangible, as if the very atmosphere was conspiring against them. But Selene would be damned if she let a glorified alien book club get the better of her. "Keep your eyes open," she warned her crew, "and stay sharp. We're not just fighting the unknown here, we're fighting ourselves too." And as if Venus needed any more irony, it did just that. It transformed their internal worries into external chaos, a reminder that humanity's greatest enemy might just be its own penchant for self-destruction. As they braced themselves for whatever came next, Selene could only hope they'd snatch victory from the jaws of defeat, or at least live long enough to make a snarky comment about it. As the cavern walls seemed to inch closer with each breath, Selene wondered if they'd stumbled into some cosmic sitcom, where each episode ended with a punchline of doom. The artifact sat in the center of it all, glowing like the galaxy's worst nightlight. "All right, crew," Selene said, rallying the troops with the enthusiasm of a funeral director. "Let's get our heads straight. We've got manifestations getting cozy with reality, and the Lithari breathing down our necks like they're waiting for us to screw up." Gray snorted. "Screw up, that's just our brand." "We should trademark it. I'd buy the merch," Rook added, his holographic form lounging against nothing in particular. "Nothing says I was there like a shirt with 'I survived Venus,' and all I got was this lousy possession on it." "Focus, people," Selene snapped, though she couldn't suppress a grin. "We need to figure out what this artifact is before it decides to rewrite us out of the story entirely, Doctor." Lena Wu hunched over her handheld, her fingers a blur. "I've got something," she said, her voice carrying a hint of triumph. "This thing might be a relic from an ancient Earth civilization." Gray raised an eyebrow. "Ancient Earth, like before or after we had to ditch it for greener planets? Before. Way before." Lena's eyes darted from her screen to the artifact, a look of academic fascination creeping in. "The energy it's releasing matches patterns found in some of the oldest records we have, like Atlantis-level old." "Great, so it's a library with an attitude problem," Selene muttered. "And here I thought the internet was bad." Zero's voice, as chipper as ever, buzzed in her earpiece. "Manifestation detected. Incoming on your location." As if on cue, the air shimmered with an unholy glow, and a ghostly figure materialized, wielding a sword that looked a little too solid for comfort. It charged with the enthusiasm of a rabid fan at a reunion concert. "Bloody hell," Gray yelped, diving for cover. "I didn't sign up for a medieval reenactment." Selene dodged to the side, pulling her sidearm and firing wildly. "We got ourselves a night with an attitude. Suggestions run," was Gray's predictably helpful contribution, or fight. Rook called out, sounding like he was enjoying this way too much. "Either works, but one's more heroic." The knight swung its sword, cutting through a support beam like it was butter. The cavern shook, rocks tumbling down with the enthusiasm of a landslide. "We're in a goddamn storybook gone wrong," Selene barked, ducking and weaving. "And not the fun kind with talking animals." The Lithari leader stepped in, eyes blazing with a purpose Selene couldn't quite trust. "Contain the energy," they intoned, as if that was supposed to make everything all right. "Yeah, working on that," Selene snapped, emptying her magazine into the spectral night. Each hit disrupted its form, turning it into a storm of flickering light and static. Dr. Wu, still glued to her screen, was calling out data like a bingo announcer. "The manifestations are becoming more frequent. We're not just dealing with stories, we're dealing with the echoes of civilizations past." "Wonderful," Gray grunted, throwing a wrench at the night as if it were a magic missile. "Next thing you'll tell me is we're going to get a visit from Julius Caesar asking for a Caesar salad." The night finally disintegrated with an ethereal scream, the air clearing as quickly as it had thickened. Selene took a deep breath, trying to ignore the way her heart was doing a passable impression of a jackhammer. The Lithari watched the scene with a serenity that would have been admirable in a yoga instructor. The artifact must be contained, they repeated, as if that were the universal answer to all life's problems. Contain it, Celine echoed, incredulous. You mean like with a Tupperware lid or something? Rook chuckled, his holographic form flickering with the movement. I'd say duct tape, but I think we're a little past that point. Celine wasn't sure what was worse, the manifestations or the fact that the Lithari seemed to know more than they were letting on. What aren't you telling us? She demanded, rounding on the alien leader. The Lithari remained infuriatingly calm, offering a slight nod. The artifact's stories must not be allowed to alter the balance. They bring chaos to order. Yeah, chaos is kind of Venus's default setting, Gray noted dryly, inspecting the damage to their makeshift base. How about a little less mysticism and a bit more practical advice, Doctor? Wu looked up from her data, a mix of irritation and determination in her eyes. We need to correlate these manifestations with the stories they represent. If we can predict the next one, maybe we can stop it from tearing us apart. Right, so we need a library card and a lot of luck, Celine murmured. But until then, I want everyone on high alert. These things aren't just atmospheric. She hesitated, looking around at the mess. They're personal. The cavern fell into a tense silence, the quiet creeping in like an unwanted guest. Celine could feel the weight of her crew's eyes on her, each one silently hoping for a miracle she wasn't sure she could deliver. Look, I know this is insane, she said, softer now, but we've come this far. We can't just pack up and let Venus win. Gray offered a lopsided smirk. I'd say we've pissed off the wrong planet, but I think this planet's been pissed off since its formation. Spoken like a true pessimist, Rook chimed in. And yet here we are, still kicking, barely, Doctor, Wu added, but there was a note of steel in her voice. Let's find a way to make this artifact work for us, not against us. Celine nodded, feeling a flicker of hope despite it all. All right, people. Let's turn this cosmic joke into something we can use. We've got stories to read and a planet to not die on. As the crew dispersed to their various tasks, Celine stayed behind, watching the artifact with a sense of trepidation. It pulsed gently, mocking her with its secrets. Keep your tricks to yourself, she muttered. We've got enough problems without playing host to ancient history, but even as she spoke, she knew it wouldn't be the last of their troubles. There was something sinister in the way the artifact seemed to wait, like a spider poised for dinner, and Celine could only hope they'd be ready for whatever came next. The Lithari, still hovering nearby, gave her a knowing look. The stories are powerful. But remember, Captain Quell, your world is built on stories of its own. Let's just hope it's the kind with a happy ending, Celine replied, turning away from the artifact's glow, the weight of uncertainty pressing heavily on her shoulders. The team's headquarters, a glorified collection of tents and equipment piles, had never seemed so vulnerable. The artifact's glow could be seen from their makeshift perimeter, a constant reminder of the ticking clock they were up against. As Celine considered their next move, Rook's hologram winked into existence beside her. So what's the plan, fearless leader? Besides avoiding death by narrative, we dig, Celine replied, literally and figuratively. We need everything we can get on that artifact's history and fast, digging into the past. Rook asked, raising an eyebrow. Sounds like a blast. Who doesn't love a scavenger hunt where the prize is not dying? Exactly, Celine said, already feeling more focused. And keep an eye on the Lithari. I don't trust them as far as I can throw them, which, given their physique, isn't very far, Rook quipped, but noted. Trust me, I've got an eye on them. Several, in fact. As Rook disappeared with a flicker, Celine turned to find Doctor Wu mid-data analysis, fingers flying over her handheld like a virtuoso pianist at concert. Find anything that doesn't want to kill us, Doctor. Wu sighed, the sound reminiscent of a parent discovering their kid's latest mess. More stories, myths, legends, snippets of history. And something that might be useful, a record of a similar artifact discovered centuries ago. Useful how? Celine asked, her interest piqued despite herself. Dr. Wu scrolled through her data. The record suggests it was somehow neutralized, but details are, as always, annoyingly scarce. Great, Celine muttered, rubbing the back of her neck. So we're dealing with an ancient, possibly sentient artifact, and our only guide is a vague bedtime story from a more optimistic time. Pretty much, Dr. Wu agreed without a hint of irony, but it's better than nothing. If we can find out how they neutralized it, we might have a chance. Let's hope the story has a happy ending, Celine said, not quite managing to keep the skepticism out of her voice. For us anyway, nothing like a little optimism to brighten your day, Gray added, joining them with a toolbox in hand. Now let's go make history before history makes us history. As the crew dove into their work with renewed vigor, the air hummed with the unspoken challenge. Could they unravel the artifact's secrets before it unraveled them? Celine could only hope so, because if they didn't, she had the distinct feeling this cosmic joke was just getting started. The oppressive gloom of Venus hung over the crew's makeshift outpost like a bad hangover, refusing to clear. Captain Celine Quell was doing her best to ignore the way the Lithari's calm scrutiny sent her nerves into overdrive. Like they were watching their favorite soap opera, except with more potential for mass destruction and fewer commercial breaks. Celine, you in there? Gray's voice cut through her thoughts, accompanied by the satisfying clink of a coffee cup being placed a little too forcefully on the table. Or are you just contemplating how much more screwed we can get? Celine glanced up, trying to shake off the foreboding. Sorry, Gray. Was just imagining our lives as a sitcom where, surprise, everyone dies. He gave a mock salute. Well, they say laughter is the best medicine. Let's just hope it works on incineration, too. Their banter was cut short by the blaring klaxon of an alert. Zero's chipper voice piped in through Celine's earpiece like a cheery messenger of doom. Warning, hostile activity detected. Lithari forces are advancing on your location. Probability of success without intervention, negligible. Well, that's just fantastic, Celine muttered, already reaching for her sidearm. Nothing like a good old-fashioned last stand to start the day, right, Doctor? Wu, ever the beacon of optimism, looked up from her handheld. If they've decided to stop playing with us and start playing smash and grab, we're in trouble. Understatement of the millennium, Gray grumbled, grabbing his wrench like it was a sword. Great, now we're up against angry aliens and their mysterious artifact of fun. The Lithari leader, standing with the serenity of someone who had just found inner peace, or perhaps their next victim, approached with that infuriating calm. The artifact must remain undisturbed, they intoned, as if that settled everything. Yeah, well, tell that to your trigger-happy friends, Celine shot back. In case you missed the memo, they're not here for a peaceful chat over tea. Perhaps diplomacy would be more effective if accompanied by less weaponry, the Lithari suggested with the kind of infuriating calm that made Celine want to introduce their face to a wall. Or maybe diplomacy could take a backseat to not dying, Gray suggested, surveying their motley collection of defenses. Look, let's just focus on making sure this place doesn't turn into a pile of rubble. The Lithari leader's eyes flared, perhaps in frustration, perhaps in amusement. Your methods are unorthodox. We call it improvisation, Rook quipped, his holographic form flickering into view. Or at least that's what we say when it works. Celine gave a curt nod, trying to project a confidence she didn't quite feel. All right, let's show them what a little Earth ingenuity can do. Gray, rig up whatever you can. Doctor, Wu, keep working on deciphering that artifact. Rook, keep an eye on all those eyes. And so, with all the enthusiasm of a condemned soul on their way to the gallows, the team scrambled to prepare for the Lithari assault. It wasn't long before the first wave hit, like a storm with bad manners and worse intentions. Gray was in his element, swearing like a sailor and jury-rigging defenses out of parts that didn't belong together. If it holds, I'm a genius. If it doesn't, well, no one will be around to complain. Celine took cover behind a stack of crates that might just as well have been made of wet tissue paper. Just like old times, huh? If by old times you mean every other suicidal mission we've been on, then yeah, Gray replied, as a makeshift turret sputtered to life, spitting fiery defiance at the advancing Lithari. The air was a cacophony of blaster fire and shouted commands, punctuated by the occasional explosion that rattled the very ground. Dr. Wu ducked as a stray shot whizzed overhead, barely missing her. Remind me why I didn't stick to academia. Because you love the smell of danger in the morning, Rook suggested, helpfully not ducking since holograms rarely get shot. Celine fired off a few rounds, adrenaline pumping through her system with the efficiency of a caffeine Roman 4. Everyone, hold your positions. We're not going down without a fight. The Lithari forces pushed forward, their ranks a disciplined force against the ragtag chaos of Celine's crew. But chaos, as it turned out, had a charm all its own. Improvised mines, cobbled together from salvaged parts and sheer desperation, exploded with unpredictable ferocity, scattering the alien attackers like leaves in a hurricane. You know, for being outmanned, outgunned, and out of our minds, we're doing all right, Gray noted, almost cheerfully, as another makeshift bomb sent a shockwave through the enemy lines. Surviving out of spite is an art form, Celine replied, firing another round. And we're Goddam Van Gogh right now. The battle raged on, a symphony of chaos and grit, each member of the crew playing their part like it was the last performance they'd ever give. And in the midst of it all, the artifact sat, glowing ominously, indifferent to the carnage it had precipitated. Celine found herself next to Dr. Wu, who was still valiantly trying to coax some kind of miracle from her data. Any chance you've got a magic button on that thing to make this all go away? Dr. Wu shook her head, her expression a mixture of focus and frustration. Only if we believe in fairy tales, but I might have something. The artifact reacts to energy signatures. If we can tune it just right, maybe we can disrupt the Lithari signals. Sounds like a plan, Celine said, firing at a Lithari soldier who got too close for comfort, or at least the highlight of a really bad day. Meanwhile, Gray was busy proving that desperation and ingenuity were often mistaken for genius. "This is either going to work or blow up in our faces," he muttered, adjusting a last-minute connection that no sane engineer would have considered. "Let's aim for the first option," Celine called, glancing at Gray's handiwork with more hope than she'd admit to. "I've got enough scars for one lifetime." The Lithari continued their advance, a relentless tide that threatened to overwhelm the crew's defenses. But against all odds and logic, the improvised countermeasures held barely, but held nonetheless. "Why do I feel like we're the punchline to a cosmic joke?" Rook wondered aloud, ducking just as a shot passed through his non-corporeal head. "Because we probably are," Celine replied, firing again and again, each shot a defiance against the fate that seemed determined to wipe them out. "Doctor." Wu's fingers flew over her handheld, a mad symphony of keystrokes. "Got it, if I can just yes, I think I can divert the artifact's energy." "Think or no?" Gray asked, his voice tight with the kind of stress that makes people quit and take up pottery. "Think, but I'm willing to bet my life on it," she shot back, her eyes alight with determination. The kind of look that either inspired confidence or a desperate need for a stiff drink. "Good enough for me," Celine nodded, making a quick decision that would either save them or be the last of many bad choices. "Do it." With a deep breath, Dr. Wu initiated the sequence. For a moment, there was nothing but the sound of battle, the chaos refusing to abate. Then slowly the air itself seemed to shift, a rippling wave of energy pulsing out from the artifact. The Lithari paused, their movements suddenly hesitant, as if caught in the grip of some unseen force. The artifact's glow intensified, bathing the cavern in a light that was both beautiful and terrifying. "Well, either that's good news or we've just leveled up to a new kind of problem," Rook observed, his holographic form flickering in and out of existence. "Let's hope it's the former," Celine said, listening to the sound of her own heartbeat in the brief lull. "Everybody fall back. If this works, we might just have a chance." As the artifact's energy swelled, the Lithari forces began to falter, their advance slowing to a confused halt. It was as if they were caught in a story they couldn't quite remember the script for. The light continued to pulse, reaching out like a beacon or a warning to the universe at large. And then, just as quickly as it began, the artifact's glow dimmed, settling back into its steady, malevolent rhythm. For a moment, the cavern was filled with nothing but the sound of ragged breathing and the distant rumble of Venus itself, a planet that seemed to take pleasure in their plight. "Did we win?" Gray asked, eyes darting around the cavern, searching for some sign that victory, or at least survival, had been achieved. "I think we just bought ourselves some time," Celine replied, watching as the Lithari retreated, their disciplined ranks unraveling in the face of whatever force the artifact had unleashed. And while it wasn't exactly a victory parade, it was enough to let Celine believe, just for a moment, that they might live to see another day. The dust had barely settled in the cavern when Celine felt a familiar tug at the corner of her mind, like a hangover that never quite left. The artifact, resting in the middle of the chaos, was still glowing with that unsettling, come-hither luminescence. It was mocking them, she was sure of it. "Well, that was a lovely little intermission," Gray huffed, wiping sweat and dirt off his brow. "I do love it when our lives hang by a thread thinner than my last relationship." Celine ignored the urge to laugh. Dark humor was their balm, but she needed focus. "Dr. Wu, what the hell did you do back there?" Dr. Wu was already fiddling with her handheld, fingers dancing like a concert pianist on opening night. I think I redirected the artifact's energy. It responds to patterns." "Stories, if you will, stories," Celine repeated, incredulous. "We're supposed to save our skins with bedtime tales." "Hey, I always knew we'd read our way into trouble one day," Gray quipped, eyes flicking to the artifact as if daring it to respond. "No, not bedtime tales," Dr. Wu insisted, a spark of excitement lighting up her eyes. "Earth's legends are stories of heroes and villains." "The artifact seems to resonate with the energy of these narratives." "Great, so does it take requests?" Rook chimed in, his holographic form sauntering over with a grin. "I've got a few anti-hero stories I'd love to see play out." Celine considered the possibilities, crazy as they were. "You mean we could use Earth's fictional characters to bail us out of this mess, Doctor?" Wu nodded a little too eagerly for someone standing on the precipice of madness. "If we can channel the right stories, we might harness their attributes. The artifact's energy could project them, physically. Well, why the hell not?" Gray spread his arms wide. "Every other plan has been a disaster. At least this one has a chance of being entertaining." "Let's not get too hopeful," Celine warned. She didn't trust hope. It was like a bad ex, always showing up at the wrong time. "But if we're going to pull off a miracle, we better start somewhere." The cavern was a temporary sanctuary, the artifact's glow casting eerie shadows that danced like phantoms. Celine gathered her motley crew, grim determination etched in every line of their weary bodies. Gray leaned against a console he'd rigged to life with some spit and a prayer. So we just start narrating our favorite stories. Once upon a time, please don't kill us, or we get creative, Celine replied, her mind spinning with possibilities. Think of someone who can take on the Lithari. How about Sherlock Holmes? Rook suggested. That guy was a genius, right? Maybe he can figure out how to outsmart them. Or Conan the Barbarian, Gray offered with a snort. I mean, if we're going for muscle over brains, why not? Dr. Wu shook her head, suppressing a smile. The artifact needs more than just a name. It craves the narrative's essence, the conflict, the triumphs, the character's core. Great, so story time it is, Celine sighed, glancing around at her crew. Let's start brainstorming. We need someone who can give us an edge. They huddled together, tossing around ideas like desperate gamblers, their hopes pinned on the whims of an ancient artifact with a penchant for drama. What about Odysseus? Dr. Wu suggested eventually, her voice thoughtful. Resourceful, cunning, he's the type who'd thrive in this mess. Yeah, and he has experience with angry gods, Gray added, chuckling darkly. Should be a good warm-up for dealing with pissed-off aliens. Rook's hologram flickered, his expression one of exaggerated epiphany. Or how about Captain Ahab? He chased those Lithari bastards to the edge of the universe. Let's stick with Odysseus, Celine decided, feeling the weight of what was at stake. If this worked, it could tip the scales. If not, well, they'd just be the latest in a long line of failed adventurers. Dr. Wu nodded, already deep in thought. I'll need to program the artifact to recognize the tale, his trials, his perseverance. It has to mimic the journey as closely as possible. Good, Celine said, feeling a flicker of hope she'd long since buried. Let's make this count. As Dr. Wu delved into the intricacies of the artifact, Celine paced, her mind a whirlwind of scenarios, pitfalls, and fleeting chances. The Lithari wouldn't stay confused for long, and their next attack would likely be the last. Hey, Celine, Gray called out, startling her from her thoughts. You ever think we'd end up in a situation where literature could save our asses? Not in a million years, she replied, allowing herself a wry smile. But I guess there's a first time for everything, Doctor. Wu's fingers moved with a speed that suggested either genius or insanity. If I can sync the data with the artifact's resonance patterns, we might just get our hero. Hoping you're right, Celine said, glancing at the walls of the cavern, their solidity offering little comfort against the storm barreling their way. Otherwise, we're about to be the main course at a Lithari dinner party. Time dragged its feet like a sulking child, each second stretching into eternity as they waited for the artifact to work its magic or its madness. Finally, Dr. Wu looked up, a mixture of triumph and exhaustion etched on her face. It's ready, we should see something. Anything soon. Anything, Gray asked with mock concern. Should we be worried about summoning a Greek tragedy instead of a hero? We're already in a tragedy, Rook pointed out. A comedy would be a refreshing change of pace. Celine took a deep breath. All right, crew, buckle up. Let's see if we can rewrite our fate. The artifact pulsed, its glow intensifying until it was almost unbearable. The air shimmered, a heat haze that bent reality and sanity alike. The cavern filled with a low hum, part music, part menace. And then, from the very ether, a figure began to coalesce. A man clad in ancient armor, ocean spray still clinging to his cloak. His eyes were sharp, cunning, the eyes of a man who'd seen the very worst and still dared to hope. Is that? Gray started, disbelief coloring his words. Odysseus, Celine confirmed, her voice barely a whisper, as if speaking his name too loud might drive him back into the ether. Odysseus, or the projection of him, looked around the cavern, his gaze settling on each of them in turn. I am summoned to a world of gods and monsters, he intoned, voice rich with the weight of centuries. What is the nature of your plight? Well, Celine began, a grin breaking through her worry. We've got a bit of pest problem. Think you can help? Odysseus nodded, a warrior's resolve solidifying in his eyes. Point me toward the foe and let us see if they can withstand the wiles of Ithaca's king. Gray let out a low whistle. I think I'm in love. Join the club, Rook quipped, his holographic form beaming with delight. Let's hope he comes with a return policy. The crew gathered, a ragtag band with a mythical hero at their helm. It was an absurd, glorious sight, the kind that might one day become a story in its own right, a tale of defiance and madness in the face of overwhelming odds. All right, Celine said, her voice steady despite the chaos swirling around them. Let's show the Lithari what happens when Earth legends come to life. With renewed energy, they set their plans in motion, crafting strategies that blended ancient myths with futuristic tech, each member of the crew playing their part with a fervor born of desperation. The artifact buzzed with an otherworldly energy, its glow a beacon in the gloom. For the first time since their ill-fated expedition began, Celine felt a spark of something she hadn't dared to feel, hope. It was a precarious, fragile thing, like a flame in a storm, but it was enough to light their way forward, enough to fuel their fight. As they readied themselves for the impending clash, the cavern buzzed with a new energy, a sense of purpose that transcended the fear and chaos that had dogged their every step. Doctor. Wu adjusted something on her handheld, her focus unwavering. let's do this. If Odysseus can face the wrath of gods and survive a decade-long journey home, we can handle a few alien invaders. Yeah, and with him on our side, maybe we can start charging admission for this circus, Gray joked, though his eyes held a glimmer of genuine hope. The Lithari wouldn't know what hit them, Selene mused, watching as the hero of old readied himself for battle. They may have come seeking conquest, but they'd stumbled into something else entirely, a story that refused to end the way they wanted. As Odysseus took his place at the fore, an unlikely leader of an even less likely crew, Selene felt a strange kinship with the old hero. Perhaps they were all stories in some sense, echoes of past glories and future dreams, bound together by the shared madness of their current plight. With a silent nod, she signaled the start of their counterattack, the crew and their mythical ally charging forward into the fray. It was a desperate gambit, a roll of the dice with everything on the line. But as they surged forward, the artifact humming at their backs, Selene couldn't help but feel that maybe, just maybe, they had a chance. And if not, they'd at least go down swinging, a tale worth telling, even if their names were lost to history. Because in the end, what were they but the stories they left behind? The Lithari forces were waiting, but this time, Earth's myth and madness would lead the charge. And as the first shot rang out, Selene couldn't help but smile, the chaos and uncertainty of it all fading into the background. They were fighting for their lives, sure, but more than that, they were fighting for their story. And that, she decided, was worth everything. The air in the cavern was thick with anticipation, and the glowing artifact thrummed like an over-caffeinated engine. Selene stood at the helm of her ragtag crew, feeling a strange mix of nerves and excitement. It wasn't every day you summoned a mythic hero from the annals of ancient Earth to fend off a pack of alien invaders. Odysseus, fresh from his own epic tales, looked around with a bemused expression. Is this some form of Tartarus? Or perhaps another cruel jest from Athena? Selene chuckled, her voice laced with sardonic humor. Welcome to Venus, the universe's worst vacation spot. Try not to lick the walls, they're made of sulfuric acid. Gray snorted, elbowing Dr. Wu. I guess we could always add demonic landscape to the description for our next airman listing. Dr. Wu gave a sarcastic roll of her eyes. I'm sure it'll be a hit. Come for the acid rain, stay for the murderous locals. Odysseus raised an eyebrow, clearly unimpressed. I have faced a Cyclops with less bravado. Yeah, well, we're short on Cyclopes and long on sarcasm, Gray quipped. He was busy tinkering with a handheld device, his fingers moving like he'd just downed a pot of coffee. And speaking of sarcasm, what's the plan, Captain? Selene grinned, eyes glinting with a touch of madness. We give the Lithari a little taste of earthly creativity. They'll never see it coming. Rook, their ever-playful holographic companion, flickered into view. I've got a suggestion for our next guest. How about Robin Hood? Good with a bow, and he doesn't mind breaking a few rules. Doctor. Wu nodded, already fiddling with her handheld. I can work with that. Let's see if this artifact's got room for one more legend. Gray looked skeptical. We're really hedging our bets on a bunch of stories, huh? I mean, what's next? Summoning Bugs Bunny to outwit our foes. I'd pay to see that. Rook chimed in, grinning widely. But for now, let's stick to myths and legends, as Doctor. Wu set to work. Selene couldn't shake the uneasy feeling that their fate rested on a glorified bedtime story. She exchanged a glance with Gray, his expression mirroring her own doubts. But doubt was a luxury they couldn't afford, not when survival was hanging by a thread. All right, people, Selene ordered, her voice steely. Get ready. Once Robin Hood's in the game, we're taking the fight to the Lithari, just as Doctor. Wu finished her adjustments. The artifact flared with a blinding light, like a supernova trapped in a snow globe. The air crackled with energy, and from the shimmering haze stepped Robin Hood, looking remarkably spry for a centuries-old folk hero. Ah, a merry band, I see. Robin Hood's eyes twinkled with mischief, his bow slung casually over one shoulder. And whom shall we be robbing today? The Lithari, Selene replied, gesturing towards the cavern exit. Overly ambitious aliens who've overstayed their welcome. Robin Hood gave a theatrical bow. Then I shall gladly join this noble quest for liberation. Odysseus clapped Robin on the back, a wry smile tugging at his lips. Welcome, outlaw. Let us see if our combined cunning can turn the tide. Gray snickered. All we need now is a Greek choir for commentary. Dr. Wu, focused as ever, tapped into her device, sending a cascade of data to the artifact. Let's hope our heroes can stand up to whatever the Lithari have planned. The tension in the cavern shifted to a determined focus. They had allies from Earth's most enduring stories, a crew of cynical misfits, and a plan that was half brilliant, half insane. In other words, just another day in the life of humanity's last hope. Selene strode forward, the weight of leadership resting easy on her shoulders. All right, let's move. We've got aliens to convince, and I doubt they're in the mood for a chat. As the crew made their way toward the Lithari stronghold, the landscape of Venus loomed ominously, a backdrop fit for a final showdown. The noxious atmosphere and baking heat were forgotten as adrenaline surged through their veins. "Hey, Celine," Gray called out from the rear. "If we survive this, remind me to whack you for getting us into this mess." "Only if I don't manage to whack myself first," Celine shot back, her smirk audible. "Now hurry up. We've got a legend to make." The closer they got to the Lithari, the more palpable the alien presence became. Celine could feel the tension in the air, like a string pulled taut, ready to snap. "Remember," she announced, eyeing her eclectic team, "we hit fast and hard. Show these intergalactic tourists why Earth isn't as easy a target as they thought." Robin Hood knocked an arrow, his grin infectious. "Let's give them a tale they'll never forget." Odysseus nodded, a glint of warrior's pride in his eye. Victory favors the bold. They reached the Lithari encampment, the aliens' sleek, otherworldly craft gleaming in the distance. The Lithari themselves were scattered, their attention divided, perfect for an unexpected assault. Celine signaled the advance, and chaos erupted like a volcano. Robin's arrows flew with unerring accuracy, finding gaps in alien armor. Odysseus, wielding a sword that seemed to hum with its own legend, charged with a battle cry that echoed through the ages. Dr. Wu and Gray provided support from behind, their tech-infused antics complementing the classic heroism of their mythical allies. Rook darted between them, offering a running commentary that was equal parts sass and strategy. "Incoming, left flank," Rook called, delighting in the mayhem. "Let's see if they can handle the classics." The Lithari, caught off guard by the sudden and unexpected onslaught, scrambled to regroup. Their sleek forms moved with alien grace, but they were no match for the raw, narrative power wielded by Earth's finest. Celine felt a fierce pride as her crew fought with everything they had, the artifact's mysterious energy fueling their unlikely alliance. They were a motley crew, armed with little more than stubbornness and myth, but damn if they weren't making it work. "Gray, cover me," Celine shouted, charging toward the heart of the Lithari formation. Her blaster spat fiery defiance, each shot a declaration of Earth's resilience. Gray let out a whoop, laying down suppressive fire. "Go get him, Captain. Show these space bastards what for." The Lithari, for all their advanced tech and superior numbers, were beginning to falter. The combination of archaic cunning and modern ingenuity was proving too much for them to handle. In the thick of the battle, Celine found herself face to face with one of the Lithari leaders, a tall, imposing figure with an air of aloof disdain. The alien's voice was calm, its tone dripping with superiority. "You are a fool to resist. Surrender, and we may yet show mercy." Celine laughed, a harsh sound that cut through the chaos. "Mercy from you lot. Sorry, but we don't negotiate with wannabe conquerors." Odysseus joined her side, his sword leveled at the alien leader. "Your hubris blinds you. We are the stories that refuse to end." Robin, not to be outdone, loosed an arrow that embedded itself in the alien's shoulder. "And we're not the type to back down from a good scrap." The alien leader staggered, taken aback by the relentless assault, not just from physical force but the sheer audacity of their resistance. From behind them, Rook's voice rang out. "Nice shot, Robin. 10 points to the merry men." Celine could sense the tide turning, felt the shift in momentum as the Lithari hesitated. They'd come expecting an easy victory, not a mythic uprising. "Let's finish this," she urged, rallying her crew for the final push. "Show them that Earth stories aren't just for bedtime." As they pressed the attack, the artifact's glow intensified, its energy weaving through the air like a living thing. The Lithari, overwhelmed and outmatched, began to retreat, their resolve crumbling beneath the weight of Earth's legends. Celine watched them go, a fierce satisfaction settling in her chest. Against all odds, they'd done it. They'd taken a stand and proved that humanity wasn't ready to be a footnote in someone else's story. Dr. Wu approached, her expression a mix of wonder and exhaustion. "I think the artifact's power is starting to unravel. It needs a rest, just like the rest of us." Gray let out a long breath, holstering his weapon. "You mean no more surprise guest appearances? Damn, and here I was hoping for Perseus to show up with Medusa's head." "Next time," Celine promised, her voice tinged with both relief and a touch of giddy disbelief. They'd survived, and in doing so, they'd become a legend in their own right. As the dust settled and the Lithari retreated, defeated and humbled, Celine took a moment to savor the victory. They were battered, bruised, and more than a little insane, but they were alive. Odysseus clapped her on the shoulder, his eyes twinkling with shared triumph. "Well fought, Captain. I see now why your people love their stories so." "Thanks," Celine replied, grinning like she'd just won the universe's worst lottery. "Can't say I expected to be in one, but I won't complain." Robin Hood gave a theatrical bow. "A pleasure to fight alongside such worthy companions. May our tales live on in song and story." Celine chuckled, feeling a warmth she hadn't felt in too long. "And may we never have to do this again." As the crew regrouped, basking in the afterglow of their improbable success, Celine knew one thing for certain. They were more than just a story. They were proof that humanity's spirit was as indomitable as ever. With the artifact's glow dimming to a gentle, reassuring pulse, they began the journey back to their outpost, victorious and oddly hopeful. Because in the end, it wasn't just about the stories they told, but the ones they lived. And that, more than anything, made all the difference. The dust of battle settled like a bad hangover after a night at a Martian dive bar. Celine, hands on her hips, surveyed what remained of the Lithari encampment. The place was as trashed as a rock star's hotel room, equipment smashed, structures toppled, and the odd Lithari souvenir scattered across the scorched ground. The Lithari had retreated faster than a politician from a hot scandal, leaving behind a scene that screamed of interstellar looting gone wrong. Well, Gray said, wiping sweat and alien gunk from his brow, I've been to more dignified bar fights, but not by much. Celine chuckled, though the sound came out more as a relieved sigh. At least we didn't have to pay for the damage deposit on this one, Doctor. Wu, looking like she'd just been run over by a solar flare, sauntered over, clutching their trusty artifact. I think this thing needs a lie-down more than we do. It's been glowing like a nightclub on a Saturday night. The artifact, the source of their unexpected triumph, sat in her hands with a barely perceptible hum, its once blinding light now a soft, pulsing glow. The thing had more tricks up its sleeve than a carnival magician, and the thought of what else it could do was as thrilling as it was terrifying. Well, good job, team, Celine said, her voice carrying the kind of satisfaction that came with surviving the universe's worst vacation. We've officially turned the tide on Venus, or at least made enough of a mess that the Lithari won't want to come back in a hurry. Robin Hood, still looking annoyingly spry, leaned casually on his bow. A pleasure, truly, though next time, perhaps somewhere with less acid rain and more. Ale, Celine snorted. I'll add it to the list of demands next time we get press-ganged into saving humanity. The gang gathered around, each carrying the weariness of battle and the smugness of survival. Rook, ever the peanut gallery, flickered into view. So, Legends of Earth, how does it feel to have given the Lithari their first storytelling lesson? Odysseus, never one to miss a chance for theatrics, gave a nod of approval. The bards will sing of our deeds if they can find a tune in all this technological wizardry. Gray rolled his eyes. Let me know when they do so I can buy some earplugs. The artifact seemed to thrum with satisfaction, the echoes of the stories told vibrating gently through the air. It had been the key to turning legend into reality, to rewriting the script of their lives in ways none of them could have anticipated. And now, as they stood among the remnants of their hasty battlefield, the question of what came next loomed large. Venus isn't exactly home sweet home yet, Celine admitted, her eyes scanning the toxic landscape. But it's a start. We'll turn this rock into something we can live on, even if it kills us. Cheery thought, Gray muttered, tinkering absent-mindedly with a piece of Lithari tech he'd pocketed. But hey, at least we can say we fought the good fight. Not every day you get to kick alien ass with a bow and arrow. Doctor. Wu cracked a rare smile, the strain of the fight fading as she tucked the artifact away. And to think we started this with nothing more than a handful of fairy tales. Guess there's more truth in them than I gave credit for. Next time someone complains about bedtime stories, remind them they are our best defense against hostile aliens. Rook chimed in, clearly enjoying the irony. As they prepared to head back to their makeshift base, Celine felt a strange kind of hope bubbling beneath the surface cynicism. They'd proven that humanity had a knack for survival, for turning the tables with little more than grit and a dash of narrative magic. With a nod to her crew, she turned towards the horizon, where the sun struggled to pierce through Venus's thick clouds. All right, team. Let's see what other surprises this god-forsaken planet has in store for us. The journey back was marked by a sense of reluctant camaraderie, a shared exhaustion that felt almost comforting in its familiarity. Venus might still be a hellhole, but it was their hellhole, and that made all the difference. As they navigated the treacherous terrain, Gray sidled up next to Celine. So, Captain, what's the plan now? Turn Venus into a paradise or just make it slightly less of a death trap? Celine shrugged, a grin playing on her lips. Let's aim for slightly less suicidal and see where that gets us. They trudged onward, the oppressive heat wrapping around them like an unpleasant hug, but for the first time it felt a little less suffocating, a little less hopeless. The artifact had shown them the power of stories, of taking the narrative into their own hands. Venus might never be Earth, but it could be home, or at least something close to it. Whatever the future held, they'd face it together, armed with the knowledge that legends weren't just tales of old, but a blueprint for defying the odds. In the end, it wasn't about the stories they read, but the ones they lived. And as far as tales went, theirs was shaping up to be one hell of a saga. As they reached their outpost, a ramshackle collection of tents and tech cobbled together from the remnants of their ship, Celine took a moment to appreciate the view. Sure, it was more post-apocalyptic chic than luxury resort, but it was theirs. Robin Hood gave a playful salute with his bow. It has been an honor, my friends. Should you ever need an outlaw's hand again, do not hesitate to call upon me. or any other legends we can dredge up from the artifact, Dr. Wu added, eyeing the device with a touch of fondness. I've got a few more tricks up my sleeve yet. Here's to hoping we don't need them, Celine said, though she knew better than to count on an easy road ahead. But it's nice to know we've got options. With a final nod to their legendary allies, they watched as Robin Hood and Odysseus faded into the ether, leaving behind memories and a lingering sense of awe. Think we'll ever see them again? Gray asked, his tone more curious than wistful. Who knows? Celine replied, her gaze fixed on the horizon. But if there's one thing we can count on, it's that life's full of surprises. Dr. Wu snorted. Surprises? Please, I'll take a 5-minute nap over another surprise any day. Wise choice, Celine agreed, stretching her arms like she'd just awoken from a very bizarre dream. But for now, let's focus on making this place livable without needing ancient heroes to save our asses. As they settled back into the rhythm of survival, repairing equipment, cataloging resources, and grumbling about the weather, there was a sense of purpose that hadn't been there before. A feeling that, despite the odds, they were part of something bigger than themselves. And maybe, just maybe, they were more than the sum of their parts. A ragtag crew of misfits and legends, proving that Earth wasn't a relic of the past but a force to be reckoned with. Rook flickered back into existence, his holographic form casting a wry smile. So, Captain, when's the next adventure? Celine chuckled, wiping a smudge of grease from her cheek. Rook, when you're in charge of a bunch of humans on Venus, every day is an adventure. Good point, Rook conceded. Let's just hope the next one doesn't involve nearly as much acid rain. Or aliens, Gray added, joining them with a toolbox in hand. But I'm not holding my breath. Wouldn't recommend it, Dr. Wu quipped, adjusting her glasses. The air's toxic, remember. With that, they dove back into the chaos of their everyday tasks, the remnants of battle fading into memory. The artifact, now dormant, sat at the center of their makeshift camp, a reminder of what they'd achieved and what still lay ahead. And as the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky with hues of red and gold, Celine felt a new resolve take root. They might be battered, bruised, and more than a little insane, but they were far from broken. Because in the end, it wasn't just about survival, it was about living, about carving out a place in the universe, one story at a time, and that, more than anything, was a tale worth telling.